Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. John and I are here to talk some hockey. Long Island University came to Omaha. And John, those are some pretty exciting games.
Yeah, it was a pretty exciting series going in. You never know what to expect when you have one of these new kind of upstart programs like Long Island, which has just been playing the past couple of seasons. So yeah, very entertaining, more entertaining than I think we thought it was going to be. But before we get to that series, we've got to give a plug to our merchandise sponsor this season, Lawler's Custom Sportswear. It was military night this weekend. I've got my Brock Bremer Military Night jersey on from last season. Lawler's has gear commemorating Military Night. They have replica versions of these Military Night jerseys. They have olive drab hoodies that say Omaha Hockey on them, as well as long sleeve tees. So you might want to check those out at Lawler's Custom Sportswear. I might get one of the olive green hoodies because I do not have one of those yet, and that would be kind of fun to add that unique item to my collection. But for more information, as always, check out lawlerscustom.com. Jason, as you mentioned, Long Island came in going into that Friday night game. People were asking me what I thought. I thought that this was going to be the type of series where we might roll, we might put on the accelerator and do very, very well against Long Island. I also said it could be one of those series where it comes down to an odd goal at the end of the game, and it was the latter of those two scenarios that we had this weekend.
Yeah, for me, this was the quintessential trap series. You know, you've played two ranked opponents. You've had to be on your game with Ohio State, Western Michigan, and you've been at home for a while. Next weekend you go on the road, you're playing NCHC. It's a big game. You have to be up for that one. And in between all of that, you've got this little startup Long Island University that no one's heard of coming to town. And on paper, everyone's like, oh, you should wallop them, you should beat them, we are better here, we're better there. And you hear that for a week, and it's the kind of letdown game that you see in college hockey. And I was worried heading into the weekend just about whether or not we would be able to find a way to stay sharp against an opponent like this. But we got off to a good start. Friday night, I thought, all right, here we go.
Yeah, that first period, it was scoreless throughout about the first half of that first period. Ludke almost had a goal, but goaltender interference was called on that play, so the goal did not count. That was the second weekend in a row that we had a goaltender interference call against us like that. But 12:59 into the first period, defenseman Kirby Proctor gets the scoring started. A nice shot from the blue line, assist to Slipik and Rollwagon. Kirby, in his final campaign for UNO, has been a really solid defenseman, a stalwart on the blue line. It's nice to see him having success. UNO goes out of that first period up 1-0. Jason, how did you feel after that first period of play for UNO?
I liked our play. I thought that we were doing what we needed to do. Between calling that goal back and the major penalties and the last two penalties there in the final 4 or 5 minutes or so of the first period, I kind of felt like the refs were kind of trying to get like involved in the play and stuff, and I never liked that because you can't plan on what they're going to call, and so that worried me. And we were really shaping up to see what I was just talking about, to see a trap game. Like, this was a game where we had opportunities, we were getting pucks through, but we were making a few little mental mistakes, and we were trying too hard. I talked to a friend of mine at the intermission, and I'm like, hey, like, we're trying to make pretty plays, we're trying to do fancy stuff, and we're not doing the basics. Like, we're not paying attention to the details. And this team's good enough, Long Island's good enough, that one mental mistake and tie game, and another strange bounce or something, and we're going to lose this game. So we really needed to come into the second period and, like you said, pedal to the metal and just like assert your dominance is what I needed to see in the second period.
Well, and it looked like that was going to happen 36 seconds into the second period. Junior forward Ty Mueller gets his second goal of the season. It's a power play goal, assist to Miller and LeMay. It was nice to see Joe LeMay back in the lineup. 2-0, the Mavs at that point. But 5:40 into the second, Josh Zary, who I highlighted on last week's episode of the Mavpuckcast, gets a goal on the power play for Long Island. It's 2-1 Mavs at that point. They narrowed the lead on us, so it was close, but late in the second period, 15:23, Jimmy Glynn puts UNO up 3-1. It was Glynn's first goal of the season. It was a power play goal spurred by a game misconduct penalty on Long Island's Jack Quinn. So it was 3-1 at the end of the second. How are you feeling about our chances with a 2-goal lead going into the third period?
The 2 power play goals were nice to see because our power plays in the first were kind of weak, trying to do too much. Like, you get the man advantage, especially when you have the full 2 minutes of 2-man advantage in the first. You're trying for that pretty play instead of just making it work, and we were spreading out too much to kind of create that, and they would have been better served by just working the puck around, collapsing the box, and then getting a shot, and digging for rebounds, which is really where Jimmy Glynn's goal comes from, that grindy, gritty plays. And this team should excel there. Like, they've got the attitude, they've shown the commitment to those greasy areas in front of the nets. And so we talked in the last podcast I was on, about being more effective at getting the puck through to the net and letting the guys go to work with it. And I heard Coach say that in one of the midweek press conferences, and I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. Like, that's what we were talking about, and that's what we needed in this game. And unfortunately, like, until late in the second, they really weren't doing a whole lot of that. They were still trying to play that flyby game, the speed, acceleration, flow game. And with all the penalties, you're not going to get flow. The one thing that worried me was Sullivan taking the major at the end of the second, because that's that opportunity that Long Island needed. It concerned me heading into the third, having to kill off the remainder of that.
Yeah, like you said, the third period wasn't pretty for UNO. We felt good about the lead, but it was ugly otherwise. Put the puck on net, see what happens. A lot of goals come off of rebounds, and they don't have to be pretty goals. They don't, we don't have to see a bunch of tic-tac-toe passes. Late in the third period, LIU's Noah Kane narrows the lead to 3-2. Boy, it was close right there at the end, Jason. I was thinking, man, this thing's going to go to overtime. Mavs end up winning the game 3-2. Final thoughts. What did you think of Friday night's performance overall? Good to get the win, right?
Well, you got to get that win. The concern is if we don't, that they're going to start gripping their sticks too tight. They're going to start, trying to do something different on Saturday. So getting that win, it's probably the best thing that it's a tight win for us, because you think, all right, going into it, the chatter in the locker room, the pregame skate, the breakdown before Saturday night's game's got to be, hey, we did some good stuff, but we did a lot of stuff that just wasn't effective for us. So here's the game plan. And, you really kind of hoped, like, my concern was, going into Saturday, that now you're in a situation where either, we're committed to the process, as Coach says, and we're going to work the plan and we're going to just blow them out of the water, or we're going to still try to do the same stuff we did on Friday, and we might get snake bitten. Unfortunately, it was kind of the latter. We played a lot on Saturday the way we played on Friday.
Going into that first period, it was scoreless through most of the first. 17:45 into the first, Nolan Sullivan puts UNO on the board, gets the goal down low, assists to the Ludke brothers. The Mavs were up 1-0 at the end of the first, so close score. But like you said, there were moments where you were like, they're letting Long Island University hang around in this game, and you can't do that. Second period, it remained 1-0 throughout the first half of that period. At 11:07 in, Ty Mueller gets his third goal of the season. He shoots it from the circle. UNO is up 2-0 at that point.
It was really nice to see that, see Mueller, really kind of accept that role, take that shot. Earlier in the season, I think he would have kind of stopped that and looked for a, against the flow kind of pass on that. And I think we're clearly better served by him just shooting it, because even if he doesn't get the goal in that situation, we had net front presence there. So just get the puck to the net. And so we were starting to do some of that. The big concern halfway through is the refs are really involved and making weird calls. Like, they were calling stuff one way that they weren't calling the other way. And I hate it when refs start doing that, because I can't plan on what's going to get called and what's not going to get called. And that's a problem, if you're going to play in a tight game. So we really needed to score a lot of goals and make it not matter if they decided they wanted to get involved.
A lot of times it's just kind of ugly hockey. So yeah, I don't like to see that either. Late in the second period, 16:27 in, LIU's Josh Zary cuts the lead to 2-1. He had a big weekend for Long Island. We talked about him in last week's episode. He had 3 goals for the Sharks this weekend. It's 2-1 UNO going into the third period. Anything's possible at that point. So you got UNO wanting to get the sweep. You've got Long Island wanting to come out with something positive on the weekend. I thought we were going to get to that point where UNO was going to get some separation and really put on the accelerator and finish these guys off. But there were a total of 5 goals scored combined by both teams during the third period. The Mavs found themselves up 4-2 midway through the third, spurred by a couple of terrific goals by Zach Erdahl and freshman Tanner Ludke, who are both exciting players this season. But Long Island hung in there, and then the refs, like you said, made themselves a factor. A major penalty, contact to the head by Mike Abgral with 8:12 left in the third, really spurred LIU's comeback in the game, Jason.
Yeah, both penalty kills are struggling this weekend. We let LIU go 50% on Saturday, and those are the goals that killed us. I would even say the tying goal here at the end of the third for LIU was, goalie pulled. It's basically a power play setup, and like we just gave them way too much space on the penalty kill all night, and then when they pulled the goalie, like, we do better when we're aggressive, when we challenge, and we weren't doing that enough. And like you mentioned about Josh Zary, like, we just weren't marking him well. He's there. Who you have to watch out for. Like, he should have a shadow every time he's out there. And we just weren't marking him well. I felt really good after Erdahl's goal, because I really thought, like, that breakaway goal was a backbreaker, because you push them into a situation where they now know that even against Erdahl's line, where he's playing, like, you can't overcommit on that stuff. And so you think they're gonna pull back a little bit. And then the worst thing happens. Like, the worst thing is that you give up a goal within a minute or two of that, right? Because you've got that 2-goal lead, and now you're back to a 1. We really needed to play a more aggressive, tighter game defensively after we scored that goal to kind of shut them down, and we didn't. Ludke's goal is Ludke's goal. Like, that's what we need to see out of the freshman more. It's what we talked about in the season opening when we previewed the season and stuff. Like, Mueller and Ludke coming in as a freshman, those are the 2 guys we really looked at to drive offense for this team. And so it was nice to see them on the board, over the weekends, but defensively, we just have to do better. And then Abgral's contact to the head penalty was just, I've watched it back and back and back. I think my problem is like, if you're gonna call that in the third period with, what did we have, like 6 or 7 minutes left or something? Like, if you're gonna call that penalty that late, you have to call that penalty in the first. And they were letting that stuff go, because you easily could have called that exact same thing 4 times in the first period alone. on Saturday night, and they didn't. And so that's my problem with refereeing. Like, it's not the call. A lot of times, it's not the calls that they make. It's that they chose not to make that call earlier. And now it's in a situation where, like, LIU's down by 2 goals. Let's give them an opportunity to get them both back on a 5-minute power play.
On the all-you-can-eat power play, as college hockey commentator Dave Starman refers to it. So it was tied 4-4 at the end of regulation. For the second Saturday in a row, the game is going to overtime. UNO was on the power play to start that overtime, so they were skating 4-on-3. Defenseman Joe LeMay, who I mentioned earlier, was back in the lineup this weekend. Good to see him back. Gets the game winner 52 seconds in. It was set up by a nice pass across the slot by Jacob Caven. The fans rejoice. The team rejoice. The Mavs win 5-4. And just for the fans out there who are wondering, because Jason and I talk about this stuff every season, a win in the 3-on-3 overtime is worth 66% of a regulation win as regards the pairwise rankings at the end of the season. So we got 2/3 of a win there, Jason.
And we got 1.66% on the weekend.
That's right. But look, a great win, a great outcome. Good for UNO to get the sweep. Good to have that positive momentum going into the upcoming series against DU out in the Mile High City. So, Jason, we've got to talk about our players of the week. Who did you like this week as your player of the week for UNO?
Yeah, I thought this weekend was hard because there were a lot of instances of things I liked. I don't know what about the goal it was, but Mancini suddenly decided that he's a forward/D, and like usually you have D play D1 and forwards play F1, F2, F3, and I think he's just playing like every position now. He's like, all right, I got it all. He was rushing with the puck and stuff. That could be good for us as long as we cover for him. That could be really good. There's a lot of NHL teams out here that use that kind of style with defensemen, and so I like to see him do that. Of course, I still love what Bremer does. I love that gritty kind of play that he has. I think it does real benefit to us to have that, and you just don't typically look at a roster and find his name and say like that's the guy that's going to just be a thorn in our side all weekend. And so I love seeing him just kind of keep that up. I think you could go to Mueller and Tanner Ludke and say like those are the guys that really drove play for us. And we talk like a lot of times we like to pick off the sheet a little bit. And I'm going to go that way and somewhat off the sheet and say Kirby Proctor. He gets the goal on Friday night, gets us started, and it was a nice shot from the point, and that's what we like to see. And good things happen if he can get the puck to the net. But beyond that, like he was one of our better defensemen. I felt like he was really responsible. He was making some good hits, some timely hits, and not taking penalties on him like some of the other guys. So I'll go tiny bit off the sheet and say Proctor.
That was a great pick. The grad student has had a nice season so far. Like I said, his final campaign for UNO, 1 goal and 1 assist this weekend. He has 2 goals and 1 assist this season. And like you mentioned, he's a disciplined player. He doesn't take those stupid penalties. And that's been the great thing about Kirby during his time here at UNO is he's a really steady presence on this team, and he's having a little bit of offensive success early on this season too. So I like that pick, Jason. I like the Kirby Proctor pick. I'm going to go with a more obvious pick. I'm going to go with forward Ty Mueller. We haven't picked him as one of the players of the week this season yet. He had 2 goals and 1 assist on the weekend. He scored a goal in the last 3 games, and he currently leads the team in points. And it's good to see him starting to heat up this season because I was a little bit worried early on this season that he didn't seem to be coming out of the gate on fire. He was drafted during the offseason, and I know that was very exciting for him. So So we're hoping for big things from him this season, Jason.
Yeah, keep it up.
Keep it up. We need that going forward here the next few weeks,
Especially next week.
especially next week at DU. But before we talk about DU, we've got to talk about our things you missed at Baxter Arena. It was Military Appreciation Night on Friday, sponsored by Woodman Life. When we walked into the arena, they were handing out little American flags. There was a remembering our fallen photographic memorial in the concourse, honoring local military personnel who have died in the line of duty, which was kind of neat. Bridget and I in Scotland looked at that before the game. Certainly before the game, they unfurled a giant flag on the ice. It's always cool to see the giant flag on half of the ice sheet at hockey games. One of the new wrinkles that they had this year, Jason, they had some local ROTC members who rappelled down from the catwalk onto the ice twice during the evening's festivity. Once with the flag at the American flag at the beginning of the game, and then once during the second intermission to present a military night jersey to the family of Marine Corporal Dagan Page, who was killed in Afghanistan August 26, 2021. He was a Millard South grad who loved hockey, played hockey. So that was pretty cool to see. Jason, what did you think of those military night festivities? We also have the team wearing commemorative jerseys, which they are auctioning off, and the auction will end before this episode comes out. So we'll see if either of us end up getting one of those this year. But what did you think of the festivities?
I I love the special event nights. I always think that they do a good job of highlighting whatever that cause is. Hockey fights cancer slash we do leap for a cure, and even the New Year's Eve stuff they've done in the past, and the Star Wars nights and things like that. Like, I always just think they're a great way to get fans excited and engaged. The logistics of it is the part that's I feel bad for some of those ROTC guys that were holding the flag and the repellers coming down, and they did such a great job, and they get down there and it's they're on ice in mid-calf boots that have clearly no traction on them, and they're just struggling to get off the ice, and I'm like, oh, the poor guys, just not set up for success there. So I do kind of feel a little bad for them there.
Yeah, that's really tough on that slick ice surface. And it also illustrates why we don't want to fight a land war in Siberia, Jason. I liked the rappelling onto the ice. That was kind of like, a hockey arena version of a flyby, I guess. But I would not put it past Mike West to figure out how to have, F-15s flying over the hockey game at some point down the road. So that's always a very popular night here with the locals. So very, very cool. Both games, Jason, were sellouts. 7,802 fans, which is officially a sellout at Baxter Arena. What do you think of the sellout nights? I kind of like that they do these sellout promotions for series like Long Island University, which are not series where you would typically draw a lot of people. In the past, when UNO was playing downtown at the CenturyLink Center, they would do their sellout games around a big name opponent like Ohio State, Minnesota, Michigan, etc. Those were the kind of teams that they did sellout games for. I like the fact that they do them for these games that aren't typically going to draw a lot of fans.
Yeah, and I like that they did it on the military appreciation night that we just talked about, right? It's nice that wasn't a low attendance kind of event. They really got people out there, capitalized on the momentum that they're going to get from advertising it as military appreciation night. I always think it's easier, like you mentioned, with Minnesota and Michigan and those big name teams. For us, like Denver, North Dakota, those are easy games to get people excited to come to. So the fact that they could get people excited about this one is good, and it means good things for we've got the one game against Augustana, a new team that's coming in, and so making a push to get people there on, I think that's one's on Black Friday, is it not? Yeah.
Yep.
And so like getting people excited about like let's go check out this new team kind of thing. And then after that, we've got St. Cloud, and you've got an NCHC opponent that's doing really well, that's climbing in the national rankings, and those are going to be games that are going to be easier to sell out. So fans that want to see those, it's a big push to get tickets and bring people to those games and bring yourself to those games.
Absolutely right. The other nice thing about playing a team like Long Island is you're more likely to get a win as opposed to, say, North Dakota. And so people come out of the arena with that positive feeling of having just gotten to celebrate a win on the ice, get to experience that post game celebration maybe for the first time. So that's a neat deal. So we have two sellouts already before the first of the year. I've heard that the Augustana game, as you mentioned, that's coming up on Black Friday, is close to selling out. So you might want to get your tickets for that game against Augie. That should be exciting. They're a brand new program. They playing a lot of teams tough, and I know that their hope is to try to sell out at least one of those games against St. Cloud State. So we'll see how that goes. But man, that would be great if they could get 3 sellout games before the first of the year. So yeah, exciting crowds both nights. It's great to see the work that Mike West and company are doing at Baxter Arena to try to create a great game atmosphere for fans. But we've got to talk about UNO's road trip out to play Denver at Magness Arena, a place you and I visited a number of times. Certainly you've been there more than I have. As many of you know, Jason lived in the Denver area for most of his life. He was a former DU season ticket holder, which we try not to hold against him here on the Mavpuckcast. DU has been a nemesis for us over the years. They are currently 7-2-1. They are coming off a split at Arizona State, a team that will be joining our conference next season. Jason, what are your thoughts going into this series against DU? Certainly a team that has a lot of talented players, but also has some question marks this season.
Yeah, they do. Their question mark, we pointed out in the season opening blog, goaltending is no more Magness Corona. So what's going to go on there is kind of the question mark. And so far it's been a committee. It's been two guys kind of rotating through the net, and neither of them really stepping up and saying like, I am the goaltender of the future for Denver. Last time I checked, I believe both of them are under 900 save percentages, which is not great. So that's something that they need to kind of figure out. And some of that will be them just getting used to the style of play that Denver plays. Denver plays that fast flow type of game that we tried to play against LIU, that we didn't do so well of playing against LIU. So, that's a concern. Where their strength is goal scoring. This team is tops in the league. They're plugging away at more than 5 goals a game. And so I don't know where 6 comes from on our roster, but we're going to need to have it in. We either need to keep them under 5, or we need to find a way to score 6 if we're going to win, because that's about the only way you're going to do it against this Denver team. It's not just one guy, right? Like they've got, I think, 5 players that are in double digits in points already this season, and we're not even 10 games into the season. So they're going to score goals. They're going to find ways. We cannot be in the box. Their power play will pick us apart. They play what we talked about. They get the puck to the net. They're going to score goals. They're going to find a way to get that through. So shot blocking is going to be key, and just playing smart D. So that's what we got to do if we want to steal at least one game out of DU in their home arena.
Absolutely right. Lots of talented players up front for the Pioneers. And as you said, we've got to play a disciplined brand of hockey. Going into the season, we thought our defense and goaltending were going to be our strength. So we'll see how it does this weekend. Jason touched on some of the players, but players to watch. Junior forward Jack Devine has 10 goals and 8 assists this season. He currently leads the team. Junior forward Massimo Rizzo, a player that you're going to hear his name a lot during this series, has 5 goals and 13 assists this season. Very talented forward. Junior defenseman Sean Behrens, who is a Colorado Avalanche draft pick. So I had to get him in here for you, Jason. Has 10 assists. Yeah, has 10 assists this season. In net, you talked about this. This is probably the biggest question mark for Denver this season. Junior Matt Davis has a 3.22 goals against average currently, and freshman Freddie Halleck has a 2.55 goals against average, and they've split time this season. Halleck started both games at ASU. Neither has proven himself to be invincible in net, so there are opportunities in net. I have a feeling, though, that Freddie Halleck will probably end up being the guy as the season wears along, but we'll just have to see. DU all time against UNO is 37, 13, and 5. And this has definitely been a series in recent years where we have struggled, against DU. So it's going to be a tall order. Jason, what's your pick for this big road series, UNO's first road series of the season?
I'm going to be the pessimist here, I think. I think Denver wins both games. As much as I'd like to say that we find a way to win, like I just from a team perspective don't know where it comes from. I think it's there. I don't want to say that we're out of this by any means. Like I think we can beat Denver. If we were at home, I'd usually feel a little bit better about us, but this is our first road series. There's a lot that needs to be. We've got some freshmen that have never been to Denver. And if they go out like I've never been here before, I'm just gonna, do my thing. That could be good for us, particularly with Ludke. He could go out and just chip on his shoulder and play amazing, and that would go a long way in securing the victory. But you mentioned those guys that put up points for Denver, and it's going to take a team effort. There's just no way around it. They've got more guys with better talent. We need to capitalize on every opportunity. We need to limit our penalties. We need to play hard in the grindy areas, in the corners and in front of the net. And we need to be quick out of our zone, because if you look at Denver, they cause turnovers, they move the puck, they cycle really, really well. They've got defensemen that have great vision and good puck movement. And so if we turn the puck over, even down low in our zone, it's going to go high and on net quick. And that recovery is going to be very, very difficult. So I'd love to say that we win one and we find a way. I think the best case scenario might be that we eke out an overtime thing, and squeeze out at least a point in the NCHC standings. But it's not going to be easy. This is a tough team to play.
You are absolutely right. This is going to be a real challenge for UNO, and so Jason picks the sweep. UNO is really going to have to play, as you alluded to, they're going to have to play meat and potatoes hockey. They're going to have to put pucks on nets, see what happens. They're going to have to be willing to block shots. And as Coach Gabinet says all the time, they're going to have to be willing to do the little things right. If they do that, they have a chance. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say UNO pulls out one game on the weekend. I'm going to say that we go in there on Friday nights and upset DU. It should be noted that the Saturday night game at DU is military night out there. So you're going to get a couple of military nights in college hockey in a row here, fans. So that should be cool to see what kind of jerseys they're wearing and what kind of festivities they have going on in that game. But as I mentioned earlier, Friday's game is at 8 p.m. Central Time, so 8 p.m. here in Omaha, and Saturday's game is at 7 p.m. Central Time here in Omaha. You can watch those games on NCHC TV. You can listen to those games on the radio at 1290 Coil. Mike Valancourt has the play-by-play. Terry Leahy has the color commentary. Those guys both do a great job on those broadcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. And be sure to follow Mavpuck.com on Twitter during the weekend series for game updates. Bridget will be handling that as usual. You can find links to all of our social media channels at Mavpuck.com, as well as back episodes of this podcast, which we encourage you to listen to watch. Be sure to subscribe on the platform of your choice. But until next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.